Hello, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Silicon Valley, we're happy to host this evening for you today. We're glad to welcome our speaker. Let's be all active and engaged listeners.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, can you hear me? I suppose, yeah. Assume you can. Yeah, so my name is Andrii. I'm senior front-end developer. At the moment, I'm working in one startup in the UK. Yeah, for today, just want to speak about a bit like React component testing. So yeah, but I hope it's not just another boring tech talk. So yeah, maybe we are going to learn practical strategies. Yeah, that will make our development life much easier. Yeah, by the end of the session, I hope we will know how to write tests that actually helps, not really make our life complex, busy, and stressful. Yeah, so we will cover everything from basics. Yeah, it depends on your level of experience. So maybe if you're really experienced it, yeah, something interesting will be in the end of this meeting. Yeah, to be honest, the goal of this presentation is really simple. Write better tests, ship better code, and sleep better at night. So everything is quite related. So, but before we started, let me show please our agenda for today and basically a couple of scenes. So the first one, if you don't understand something that I'm talking, or maybe something is unclear, it depends on my English pronunciation, please don't be shy to tell about that. Another thing, if connection drops, please interrupt me anytime and say, yeah, something is really bad. We will fix that. And about timetable, so I think our time limit is like hour. So my presentation will take like 45, 50 minutes, and the rest like 10, 15 minutes we can spend on questions. So basically if we have it. Yeah, but yeah, so you can see like agenda, just shortly we can go through that one. So the first one thing is quite important. I think why testing matters and what is the cost of our box if we have it. So then we will dive into types of test. We'll just have a look, take a look into strategy and pyramid of testing. We'll explore snapshot testing, some kind of unit testing and integration testing strategies. So as like three of them are basically scaffolding of whole React ecosystem. So yeah, we'll take a look on MCW for API mocking. Yeah, for realistic API mocking and code coverage like Sona Cloud, why it's important and do we really need that? And yeah, a couple of things about best practices and patterns and common pitfalls and yeah, finally key takeaway. And then we have a Q&A session. So let's crack on. So why testing matters? So basically, there are a couple of things like confidence documentation. Yeah, you can see refactoring and bug prevention. But the thing is, yeah, I think the most important thing is the confidence because with good tests, you can deploy on Friday afternoon and without losing sleep, your code works because your tests prove it. And you don't care actually if something breaks, you care, but you know exactly it. You are not the reason of that. Your work, your code is not the reason for that. And the thing what I really like about the test is documentation. So if you just come to project and yeah, you don't have a lot of time basically to put your hands on, and you need everything for yesterday. It's everywhere like that. So it doesn't matter the company. The business wants production releases as soon as possible. And not a lot of companies has great documentation. It's a fact. Very difficult to sell for business. Why you need documentation? So yeah, suppose that every developer knows all things. So like for us, documentation can help. Yeah, because they are like manual for our code. So yeah, it can test all prop states, all behaviors that we need to. So and can easily done by everyone from newcomers and or even developers from other groups. Yeah, refactoring quite also nice thing because if something breaks, you know exactly what was breaks, and if you are adding something, yeah, you'll definitely will have a red color in your console. So yeah, and our test will catch it. definitely. And yeah, the last one, bug preventions, definitely. So it's much cheaper to catch bugs before they reach production. So yeah, about these numbers, they're not really numbers, they're quite really common statistics from the internet. So the thing is, by our unit testing, we can catch up a lot of bugs, and it's really cheap to do that while we are developing. So yeah, this translates to real time savers and less stress for developers. And about basically talking about the cost of bugs, this is really common numbers now. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. For example, how much bug could cost for you or for your company or yeah, for anyone. So the numbers is really not reflect the price of our rate. But if like I think sometimes, not really sometimes, I think even more often, the price can be really multiplied for that. Because on our side, yeah, if we are developers, we can fix the bug just potentially in like 30 minutes. So yeah, it can just pause our day-to-day stuff, but we are still concentrated on a lot of things and it's easily done. But for example, if it goes further to QA, so what going on here? So basically, we spend some time on development. Just we think that everything is fine. Just move ticket to the QA column or testing column, depends on your company. But I assume everything is the same everywhere. So QA just found a bug, report that, describe the case, return ticket to your column. You are still working maybe on another ticket. So you need to postpone that. It depends on how SAP is this bug. Then you just, yeah, roll back something, switch to the bug again, and then when you finish that, you check again, you pause that QA. QA will attentively check that again. So definitely everything is fine. Yeah, so the thing is, the further it goes, the more price, the more people will be involved. Definitely the issue is when the bug is on production and when its product is really popular. Yeah, so from really bad things here, so a lot of eyes on it, you're always focused, you're always stressed, everyone wants update. So yeah, it happens, but definitely it's really not the best thing to catch bugs on production. And the thing is, once on production something happened, what was caused? Yeah, definitely user trust. So yeah, once users lose confidence in product, yeah, it takes months to rebuild their trust. It doesn't matter basically what product you are working on. So the bug is always nasty and people don't like it. So yeah, the earlier we catch that, the cheaper they are to fix, right? So I think that rule is everywhere. So basically, testing in React could help us to avoid some really silly or sophisticated bugs. So yeah, let's take a look now on the testing pyramid. So basically, it's really nicely illustrated. So how many tests we want to see. And yeah, so it's our guide basically to building a solid testing pyramid. So yeah, this shape is really important because on the bottom level we see unit tests. So it's basically the bare bones of our testing. So we need unit testing as much as possible. So and they're fast, reliable. Yeah, sync. Yeah, hundreds, even thousand on project. It depends. Sometimes I've had one project where it was more than like 10K of tests, unit tests. So, and still, it took some time, a couple of minutes, but yeah, it was impressive, a lot of them. So, yeah, about what this purpose, we can chat a bit later. The next was in integration. So basically, integration test, this is a test that will help us to test how components work together. So they are slower than unit tests, but faster than end-to-end tests. End-to-end, yeah, it's also at the moment is quite important part of front-end development. So yeah, where we can test user workflows from start to finish. They're very slow, it can be flaky. So you need a few critical ones. And the thing is, they're quite really expensive in maintenance. So, because, yeah, if especially your project or product has GitHub actions that just don't allow you to merge your PR before all end-to-end test, integration, or unit test will pass. Every time the machine will run it again and again, again and again. It takes time, it takes your time, it takes money from business. So they're really expensive. Yeah, so we need to keep them only for the most important thing, like flows that we need, yeah, support. But today we will concentrate on the unit and integration one. So a couple of things here, uh, except unit and integration, what we have end to end. Yeah, we mentioned a couple of words about them. Snapshot tests. I think it's really, how to say, it's quite one of the most misused testing practices in React. And a bit later, we can talk about that later. Another one is visual test, when basically we have two overlays, our one, and the next one is designs, and we can combine them and just to understand how exactly design matches of what we done. I suppose it's not really popular at the moment. I've haven't heard for ages about them, but I remember like 5 or 10 years ago, they were really, really popular one. A lot of people used, especially for the interviews. Yeah. So, but still, sometimes they're used. Yeah, somewhere they should be used. The performance tests, they measure speed, memory usage, and optimization. Yeah, they help catch performance regressions before user notice. I think it's not really important for our applications because it depends on machine, laptop, people who are using that, a lot of, I don't know, surroundings. So if your laptop is really something a bit old scene and it's hit outside, your test will always fails. It's really flaky one. Yeah, and accessibility tests. So basically that one is really important. It's getting speed now about screen readers, keyboard navigation, all these roles, all the things. Yeah, Google likes that and pay a lot of attention. So about all the thing, how, yeah, our websites can help people with some disabilities. Yeah, to surf into internet. So definitely sometimes we need to pay attention on that. And the last one is contract test. It's about API integrations. Uh, yeah, they prevent if that works on my machine problem. So basically, you don't have that problem. So it's fine. It works for me, but it doesn't work for you. No, contract tests is a thing that help to fix that gap. So if it works, it will work everywhere. If it not, it not. Yeah, as I mentioned, we will just concentrate today on the unit test integration and a couple of words about the snapshot test further. So yeah, definitely, what is that? I think it's one of the most misunderstood testing techniques in React for ages. Yeah, snapshot testing captures rendered output of your components and save it in snapshot file. And every time when the tests run, it just compares that snapshot. The thing is, the benefit is really important. It's speed. Snapshot tests incredibly fast to write and to read. We can generate tests for the complex UI, like dozens of them, hundreds of them. But there is another, like, I think, critical point that we need to mention. They are not replacement for proper behavioral tests. So that's the thing. So why we need them? So, and when is better to use them? So basically, when we have a lot of copy and our UI really matter. So for example, I don't know, you have some kind of articles and you want to see them really proper, written with no changes. So definitely it would be nice to check if all our copy match the same as we expect. So basically, yeah, if we can just manage that copy is working fine. So predictable output. Yeah, so mostly it's about like presentational components and all these things. Yeah, we can also use like for complex UI if you know there are a lot of like the DOM is really large. Yeah, we have a lot of descendants. So basically we can compare every time that nothing changed. And after factoring, snapshot really help ensure that we haven't accidentally changed the UI from the previous pages. It's really handy thing, but we need to avoid them for components with dynamic dates, like IDs, timestamps. It will be disaster for us to update always. But the thing is about the snapshot, yeah, that we never know, yeah, if it fails, what exactly failed, why exactly it failed. Quite often it's because of accidentally change, and it's really nice to understand. But if you're using them just only as the only test for a component, it's really bad practice. So it shouldn't be like that. So snapshot is good only to take a picture of the page if like UI is really complex there. Copy matters, we need that. If not, yeah, better to avoid that. There is also another approach about that use snapshotting about like some people use that only for the API requests. So not even for UI. That approach is like, yeah, snapshot should be only for request just to save the response. It depends. So like I don't like that approach, but it have a place to be, right? So let's use one. So yeah, this is example how snapshot testing is quite easy. We have a user, just we render that one. We have a container. Yeah, first child we can snapshot and that one. So basically, if something in our user code could be changed, or if we accidentally change mock user, or we will add extra details, for example, extra props in the user code. So yeah, we will see definitely something change. That test will be fail. Yeah, the same situation is here. So we can change the role and everything will be described. So quite easy. Yeah. So the thing is, for the UI changes is the best thing. So it's easy, everything extremely easy. So we can understand, we can use it. But yeah, better not to overuse them. The next one is unit test. So it's really more practical than previous one, but yeah, I think it's our foundation of our testing strategy here. So unit testing is about testing one thing at a time. So we are not testing the whole thing, just one piece by piece. When you test, for example, button, you don't care about the entire page or the API calls, right? You just care what about like what happens if we click on the button, does this button render correctly? And basically that's all. That's two things that we can do here. But for unit testing, you need to understand the main thing here is speed. So basically they should be really easy, very isolated, and we can just write them a lot. So there is no need to combine a lot of tests into one when we are checking on-click function, label, role. So we can create a couple tests that is checking like scene by scene. That's really handy and really, yeah, important for us. Yeah, so basically all of them, like benefits of them, you can see like focus, speed, and tools. Yeah, tools means that we have great tools like Jest plus React testing library that could help us really create beautiful tests. Yeah, so let's take a look how can unit test example looks. So basically we have the same button as I mentioned before. Yeah, so the first one just render with text. So we render the button with some text and check if the text appears in the document. Yeah, quite simple, right? This test ensures the button actually displays what we expect. Next one, handles click events, the same. So we mock handle click. Basically, we just return just function. So we pretend that we are clicking on it and then expect handle click to be called time. So basically, if we are checking some function, we can add to have been called with. It's another parameter. So it's a lot of methods that we can use, but for button, just once should be enough. If we are expecting some kind of redirects, or some logic, we can also use it. So yeah, we can change, we can mock like history and just to check if history was fired. So yeah, the key tools here, React testing library for rendering and jest for assertion. So basically that's what we need here. So quite easy. So that's standards here. So another one about custom hooks, right? So it's a common pattern in React. I mean custom hooks, and they need testing also. Yeah, the very good news, the testing library provides this beautiful method, render hook. For example, we have some kind of use counter that we can, I don't know, like I created that only specifically for the for this meet, but let's pretend it's quite important and it return always some kind of number. So yeah, when we want to trigger state changes here, oh yeah, so basically we use render hook, we wrap that in the callback that returns our use counter, and everything here, the render hook returns result. We can use current count. Yeah, current basically returns us the returns from the hook, from the use counter. So basically, let's pretend that use counter has count, and yeah, it's to be 0 because nothing's there. But if you have a method increment, yeah, we need to wrap that in act. This ensures React processes all updates before we make our assertion. So basically, this one is waits until everything here like done before. And yeah, without that wrapper, we will have some warnings. So yeah, we will have just increment and a bit later to be just 1. So yeah, quite easy also for the custom hooks. But let's speak a bit about the integration testing. So basically, this is a scene, yeah, where we can just get our power from the unit testing. And definitely this is this place where things get more interesting and more realistic to our day-to-day life. So yeah, basically, if we compare, look at this table, unit test is let everything. They more call dependency. Integration test, no, they let real component work together, but still mock some external things like third parties libraries or maybe API calls even. Yeah, the scope is bigger in this kind of test, I mean integration ones. Instead of testing one component, we are testing the feature of the whole workflow. So definitely it's like unit test is one brick of Flagger. Integration testing is the whole combination, the whole figure. Yeah, just combine it with these bricks. The thing is, it means slower test, but higher confidence that everything works actually as we expect. Yeah, so the thing is, unit testing can help us to be sure that our component work individually fine, but integration test definitely will tell us they all work fine together. We need both of them, but for different reasons. So let's debate to integration. So yeah, let's discuss real world testing scenario basically when we have one component. Uh, yeah, actually two components, yeah, user card and search bar. And we have a page where we place all of them. So the first component, the second one, user card and search bar, they isolated unit tests, but testing user list is definitely integrated test. So yeah, so how we can do that? So basically, let me just take a look. The user card components, quite easy, just quite basic one. We have user card, we have a couple of probes like user, a couple of callbacks on like edit on delete when we use on click. Yeah, two buttons, two actions, quite easy. So this is like how we pretend to test it. So we have user card, display some information. Yeah, just checking if we have all text to be in document. Yeah, sometimes if you use a lot of to be in the document, you can create a helper. I don't know, and just displays in the document or something like that. And to check if it's just one element, we expect string. if it's an array of elements, basically you can create something like mapping and check all of them by one. So yeah, it could be really handy for you. And yeah, so basically, and here we're checking the callback. So calls on edit when edit button clicked. So everything quite easy. The next component looks the same, search bar component. So basically that one is, yeah, it has your state inside some submit that that calls on search that we are passing through props. And yeah, just basic placeholder, very easy. Form, this role, button, that's all. So this is how his test could look like. We are mocking on search, render our component, get an input button by get by role. A bit later, we will talk about how is really the priority of methods that we can use for the get by role for the screen, for the definite element, sorry, on the screen. Yeah, so here we are typing something, just checking, expecting that input exactly our one from the search bar have John. Yeah, type of that is John. So basically, and we are checking the submit. Also, we are trying to check accessibility, as I mentioned, as much as possible. So it's quite important for the Google. It's the best SEO things that really browsers want to see. So yeah, here everything is really easy. Yeah, so yeah, they basically verify the same. Search bar correctly captures the input and passes it to the brand component. So yeah, but this is a page where we have both of them. So basically what happened here, this is more complex because what we have, this page coordinates multiple child components and manages states between them. So it has its own state of users, as we can see, also filtered users and loaded status. Yeah, this thing is, it's quite practical scene. Definitely there is a room for optimizing and refactoring that scene. So yeah, from in real project, it would be nice if we can do that in our own custom hook. But for the purpose of this topic, yeah, we have a reason to place it like that. And to be honest, it's quite typical page level component. So just coordinates child components, manages some data flow, and actually what exactly we need to check here. So because a lot of logic, some UI, yeah, some loading states, some couple of functions. So yeah, we want to focus on coordination logic, not retesting the child components. So basically, let's take a look here. So we want to mock our child components. So no need, while we're testing the page, no need to retest search bar again and use a card. We've done that before. So basically now we can just mock them. Yeah, this mock still maintains the same interface. They accept the same props that trigger the same callbacks. Basically, why do we need to do that? Because we already know from unit tests, previous ones, that these components work correctly. Now we only want to test the user list, our page passes the right props and handles callback properly. Yeah, mock components much simpler and faster to render. So basically, every time the tests, don't collect them again. So yeah, we are just focusing only on interaction. So from this perspective, we are testing only logics, not basically components. So before if, yeah, we have a couple of promise that returns something, for example, ID, a couple of them. And here we can easily like test only our logic about loading users here, right? So just checking that the loading screen was done and we can see that it was removed. Yeah. So, and we are just expecting for both of them in our test. The same here about the test, the search, sorry. Yeah, we mock the fetch API to control what data the component receives. Then we verify the mock child components are rendered with the correct data. So yeah, this approach basically gives us confidence that the integration works without duplicating the work we already did in unit tests. So yeah, this is how it looks. So from small one scene to bigger, but there is no need to test everything twice. Yeah, don't repeat yourself. So here, like why we need mock child components, but only if we have tests for them before. So the thing is, yeah, it's quite easy. The slides kind of, yeah, summarize benefits of this approach. So when you mock child components in integration tests, you get several advantages. Yeah, fast execution. Yeah, we are not rendering complex child component again. Yeah, isolating them. So I mean, isolating failure points. So if it just failed once, I mean, child components, we have one failed test and we are fixing that in one place. But let's assume we are reusing that components again and again in a lot of our components. So our console will be read always, like constantly. Yeah, we need to fix it everywhere. No need on that. So we still, even one error is enough to fix it. We will fix it and everything work as we expect again. So yeah, no duplication of testing. And that's why there is no this mass dust in the console. We can easily debug that. So, and from benefits, definitely the same, like everything 100. Yeah, usually it's test only logic. Result is absolutely the same. So yeah, this is how it works. So basically, if in some case we need to check userless page further, we also can mock it. So yeah, it works on the whole scene from our journey, but we can do that only if all our pages and components are tested properly. So if for example, we have all these three components and we don't have any tests, so no need to mock user list here in user list, search bar, and user card. So yeah, it doesn't work like that. So we before would be nice if we cover this test user card, search bar, and then we can test user list again. Yeah, it takes some time. It's very difficult to sell for business why we need to do that, but this is like how it works, and this is a place where we want to be. So yeah, if you don't have a time, we can always create a ticket, put that in backlog and come back later when we have a gap. Yeah, between tickets. We have just in right mood for that. So it doesn't matter. Okay, a bit like complex thing here about the test in React context. Yeah, like this is like place I think where many developers get confused, but it shouldn't be definitely really complicated. Yeah, the thing is, we want to test here real context behavior, like mocks data, not really mock the context itself, because that defeats the purpose of the context. So yeah, the thing is, in that case, we will use our three patterns here: real context provider for integration tests, custom render function for convenience, and mock providers for control testing scenarios for the further pages. Yeah, so I think the main key takeaway here is we need test real context behavior, like mocks data, not really mock context. So this is like important thing here, and maybe let's discuss a bit later. So yeah, this is quite basic user context with a lot of data. It's quite typical. Yeah, so user provider manages states, provide methods for getting, creating, deleting user. So yeah, I think each project with users, we sign up flow and sign in, sign up flow have something similar, even maybe even with the same names. Yeah, so yeah, the same. It could be refactored, but for our purpose, it really looks amazing. So that's exactly what we need here. So it's okay architecture. I could say even good one. Yeah, but the main point, it presents a testing challenge for us. How, yeah. So let's take a look. Yeah. Depends on this context, we can create a hook. For example, use user. Oh no. Yeah, user context. I don't really like that name. I skip somehow like had to rename that. So yeah, where we basically yeah consume our context and return it. So basically, and in our components we can use like that. So yeah, quite simple, right? So let's go further. Yeah, so here we can create a couple of test utils. So why do we need that? Because basically every time when we are testing some components, let's assume that our user context is wrapping the whole application on the highest level. Yeah, so it means that every time we create a page, we create a component that is inside our application, basically it is going to be wrapped by user context. And there is no point if it's the context in the highest level, there is no point to duplicate every time this scene, this wrapper for every page. So what we can do, we can create just one helper that take one initial states and a couple of render options. So yeah, we can just talk about that a bit later. And then basically it's return our wrapper. So initial state, it's a user state that we can just fill with everything we want to. Let's have a look how it works here. So we, for example, we are mocking our provider with default values. For example, it's just quite empty. So with all these empty methods, yeah, all this default value include mock function for all context methods here. We can override any of this value by passing a mock value prop, yeah? And basically, when a bit later, we are creating mock user context. So we have some default values, yeah, that we are passing, but we can override specific parts while keeping the rest of the mock intact. So yeah, this approach gives us full control over the context in our test while keeping the test setup simple and really readable. So if we need to change something, we can reuse our create mock user context again and again. So in real life, sorry, yeah, a bit late, just in real life, we have a lot of providers. But if every time we create mock user context, we can wrap all of them into one even function and return only this function with a couple of scenes for example, users, another one for, I don't know, let's for some items. And in the end, we will have like really clean list of our proper mocking scenes. Yeah, quite handy. After that, so what we have another amazing tool that, yeah, basically, I think it's game-changing tool for testing components that make API calls. But at the moment, I think all of us using API calls every day, so it's quite important to intercept them, yeah, and check on our level as we want to. So yeah, basically, what is that? So MCW, like, yeah, just intercept network requests. So yeah, so basically I'm just trying to explain. So our code doesn't know that this request was intercepted by MCW. It still thinks that it's a proper request. So it happens on that level that our application doesn't know anything about that. So what is the key benefit of that? It means that we can test real feedback of our API on our code level. So yeah, because let's assume we have 400. Yeah, we just set 400. MCW returns yeah, 400. It's okay. We can check them. Or for example, 200. It doesn't matter. So on our level, we always know about the results of that. So, and I think it's really beautiful one because we can control all our requests. Yeah, so no more like conditional mocking logic, like or specific code for different environments. Yeah, for example, if it's like dev environment, please always like returns 400 for that one, or we need specific test. Yeah, no really rubbish for that. So, and the thing is, our test will use exactly the same code path as production. So it's really nice one. And yeah, it's really great tool. And I recommend that to use as much as possible. So what is the best thing when we are going to use that? Yeah, understanding of that is really crucial for our testing. So the best one definitely for integration test with real API calls. For example, the same calls for user, for example, when we are getting that, like fetching that, creating that, deleting, doesn't matter. So all of these calls we can intercept and test a couple of scenarios. For example, what happens if that request fails and user is not wasn't created? What we are going to do, we are going to do like create him locally and a bit later upload, try again and again, use long pooling. It depends. So we have a lot of variants, but the thing is, this MCW will help us for real moment understand what to display for user and what we expect to see on user screen when our API failed. Yeah, so for complex API interactions with multiple endpoints, MCW definitely shines. Yeah, it's also perfect for like end-to-end testing scenarios, but I know that a lot of people just like to use stage endpoints in case, yeah, if it's running on stage, definitely prod should be fine. They're not really like to use MCW for that purpose. Yeah, it has, yeah, pros and cons, depends. But so basically everything with the API, we need to use that one. So yeah, it's amazing thing, especially for testing error states. So it will help us to see what user sees if something really goes wrong. And definitely when we don't want to use that, when, yeah, simple unit test. If you're just testing one component, renders correctly with some probes, yeah, just function knock could be easy. Yeah, uh, if you're testing only logic of component, not the fetching, no reason to use that also. It's really over engineering for that situation. Yeah, if we are going, if we need a speed, if we have, for example, a lot of integration tests, but we vary our speed and we are running tests quite often everywhere, like before push, before merge, on reviews applications every time. I think a lot of MCW might not be worth it because yeah, it's quite interesting thing, but it's something like yeah, it should be used really in purpose where we need that. Yeah, for static data scenarios, we don't need that. And definitely for third-party API testing, better not to use it. Better to use contracts testing. So yeah, I think from that perspective, we are really good. So yeah, there is a small slide how we can install that. So how it looks. So basically quite easy. So we have a couple of handlers. We can just use them like that. Yeah, just rest get. So we are just setting up them and use our handlers. Yeah, set up in server. And basically, yeah, just starting and closing them. So yeah, basically on this level in test, all of them, all these methods that we have here, like error uses getting, yeah, and creating. So will be intercepted with the statuses that we mentioned here. So everything I think should be fine. So okay, the next one, yeah, is about code coverage in our application. So what exactly is it and why do we need that? So I think, yeah, code coverage is really useful for us. It could help us how much of our code is actually test. So because yeah, it's quite difficult to know if you know example, okay, just like 50% of the code is test. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that if we have, like, for example, 10 components and only 5 tests, it doesn't mean that we have 50% of coverage because each test can have, for example, only one specific case of testing. And sometimes it could happen that even we have 10 tests and 10 components, but overall, altogether, they are like covering like 10%, yeah, of functionality and logic. Yeah, so that's why code coverage is something really intelligent. It understands what exactly was covered by test and what not. So yeah, one of the good example of the tools that could help us is Sona Cloud. I think now it calls like Sona Cube Cloud, but I'm really used to old name Sona Cloud. So what is that? It's like cloud-based code quality platform that integrates with our CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, so it could be easily set up in GitHub Action. So, and yeah, so once we push our changes to GitHub, it automatically and create PR, it automatically like check all code coverage. Uh, yeah, so the thing is, for example, if we are not really why we need that? So that one. So for example, what happens, for example, if we have 50%? So okay, we have a number, what else, and what we can do with that number. The thing is, on one level of on some levels of roles in GitHub, you can set up coverage target, for example, like 80%, for example, or 75 or 90. 90 should be high, like I think 70, 80 should be fine. And for example, it blocks merging your PR if your tests are not on the level we want to see. Yeah, so basically, if you add in changes, the changes are not covered. So by 80%, you will never merge it. Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult because if you are adding changes in old files, but Sona Cloud was adding in the middle of product, you need to cover the old one. And definitely that's exactly what you want to do. But yeah, this is what we have. This is like life. Yeah, so I think, yeah, I not really always like that thing, but I definitely see a point of it. And if you don't have it, just I would recommend to set up it, at least not blocking PRs for the beginning, but a bit later, definitely like add something that will help you just to block that. The next, yeah, so this is how like we can set up quite easy. Like, yeah, I will just leave a couple of, I will leave that presentation uh, to event managers. So if you need, you can just take it. Okay, so let's come back to our testing and what best practices, the main like takeaways here. So what we want to test and what we don't want to test. So exactly we need to test user interactions, clicks, form submissions, navigation. So all these behaviors that users actually care about. All these prop state changes when there are changes. Does the UI update correctly? Test conditional rendering. Does the right content show in different scenarios? So what happens if we don't send some, I don't know, like extra properties? Maybe it will crash component or they crash the whole application. Definitely we need to test edge cases from the user perspective. So especially if you are working with some like inputs, yeah, what happens if, for example, just a few spaces were sent, what we can do with that, do we need to trim that? So yeah, while we are testing, we can think about all these scenarios and really just cut them in the beginning. So what we don't want to test, so internal state variables, private methods, third-party libraries, definitely we can use contracting testing for that. Styles and CSS classes, yeah, it's definitely not what we want to do. So it's impossible to test styles. A lot of stylings, they change constantly. It's not no reason for that. Also, yeah, console logs, no reason, just try to avoid them. Also, just want, what I want to say here, yeah, so test behavior as much as possible, not really implementation, about your code. Yeah, in the test, we need to have the user eyes and to be in their boots to understand what exactly happens with our code. So it's really important, and everyone really wins from that. So it's a good thing that always help me just AAA pattern. So range, act, assert. So basically, in the beginning, we just set up our test. For example, we have some properties. We ran our component. We are doing some activities here, some actions, and it's the same in the end what we're expecting from it. So yeah, without any of this part, the test is not valid and there is no point of that. So, but always just try to have all of them. So yeah, because without expect, this test doesn't matter. Without this part, the test doesn't matter. And definitely without like declaring the component never matter. So yeah, it's a good principle. It's a good pattern. Yeah, just to use. Yeah, as I mentioned before, there is query priority. So get by role is really important because it depends on accessibility of website and alt tags. So try to use roles as much as possible. Even if you didn't think that it doesn't matter, it always matters. So, but what you can do if you have a lot of roles, same roles, for example, you have a lot of inputs, you have a sign up flow, you can use a different labels and check also by roles. So you can create multiple methods to create get by role input and get by label tag, for example, email. Yeah, so the thing is get by test ID in the end of that, but somehow it's my favorite one. And yeah, because it's quite easy. You just add in test ID and just checking it. So you know exactly that it is. So basically you're like not really testing, you are picking up something, you just add it. So this is not how user will test our application. So let's try, or even browser. So let's try from the get by role. Yeah, so if that one, even that one works, everything should be fine. Opters used. Uh, yes, so basically a couple of them, as I mentioned before, let me quickly. So it's unit testing, integration testing, snapshotting, definitely. And end-to-end, I believe. Yeah, but it depends on your capacity. So if you are only one front-end developer, you only need unit testing and integration testing. End-to-end could be over-engineering because you need a lot of time for the whole journey, for the mocking all API requests. Yeah, but yeah, unit testing and integration are the main friends here for you. And I think, yeah, so the main thing here, just quite often I can see these errors, mistakes, and sometimes, yeah, I'm also making them. So yeah, we are testing implementation instead of behavior that I mentioned. We need to test only behavior, not implementation. So only behavior, only from user perspective is the first place. Everything else is further. Yeah, about not waiting for sync operation. So basically, it's not proper using of wait for a sync and act. So sometimes yeah, we have a different timeouts for our like API if it's not mocked. And yeah, sometimes it can really be flaky because we are not using that properly. The same not cleaning up after test. It's only making running test slowly. No, we are not happy about that. Yeah, over mocking. So we are mocking everything everywhere. And it makes sense if it's not changing our logic or rendering of components. So we are just mocking children if they are mocked, if they test properly. If not, we need to test them and then only mock. Yeah, test ID everywhere. So that's what I mentioned. So people use quite often them. And really, it's not really testing. So you're testing just what you're expecting and what you just added just now. So yeah, it's not a lot of purpose of that test for you. And yeah, writing test after bugs appear. So I think it's a harder thing for me because sometimes I can see that like we try to write tests to avoid some kind of edge cases, and yeah, we can't fix the test. So okay, let's not test that. Let's fix some other thing. And yeah, we are happy when the tests are all green. But basically, we are like avoided, yeah, by chance all red tests, so all edge cases. And when the bug happens, we write them properly, knowing that, yeah, potentially it could be our bottleneck and we need to fix that. Yeah, and also writing overly complex text setups is also a problem because sometimes the setup for testing, for example, if you have a lot of context, you have a lot of function helpers, when basically you return only one function with a lot of logic inside. And for every specific case, you're creating a lot of these functions. It's really bad. So I think better to have a couple of things that really easy to read, and you can change, yeah, in one more place, in one more file, but at least it's quite readable. And you're not looking like, okay, not today, I will close my laptop, go home. No, it doesn't work like that. So just try to keep them properly, and it's the same stylings. So once you write them on the same styling, maybe people will see that good pattern. They will take something from you, and the whole project will have the same styles. Really like that, but it's not sometimes what we have, but definitely the place what we want to see. And yeah, that I mentioned before, the same, like, don't repeat yourself. If you don't have the main thing, I think, if you don't have time now for testing, leave to do, create a ticket in backlog, and come back when you have a time. You are happy about that. I think that's all. Yeah, we are done. Would be nice to hear some questions if you have. And let me maybe stop sharing my screen, please. Oh, yeah. Yes, silence is really good. Assume no questions. Thank you, guys. Was really nice. Hope you have some good plans for the weekend and for the day. So yeah, so I don't know exactly where our event manager is.
Do you see questions in the chat?
Oh yeah, just have one. I think yeah, I covered that before.
Okay. Okay. If someone has some questions, you can write it in the chat.
I really hope that my presentation was so meaningful that everything was covered. How do you balance the trade-off between the coverage and test quality? It's a good question, to be honest. Yeah, it's really good point. So because sometimes just to get that number for the test quality, you need to add a couple of rubbish tests, and then it gives you like a percentage you want to see. But yeah, but this is like the thing. So if you have like proper test from the very beginning, it will be enough for the future. If you add really basic tests, you will have like, yeah, the design numbers in Sona Cloud. But if from the beginning you don't have a time, you don't have capacity, you need to just finish the work quickly. Yeah, I think it's a fair point. You always need to balance between them and to decide what exactly you need. So I think like from our level, I mean developers level, we can just raise that question. So basically at the moment we have chance to release some scenes, yeah, in time, but we don't have a time to get that numbers in SonarCloud, for example, 75%, but we can come back later. Or we can get that numbers with the proper tests, but it will take more time. So, but definitely what scene I wouldn't recommend to add some rubbish test only to cover that, or use snapshotting to get the 100%. So yeah, the components on the go. Yeah, so yeah, when you're just chasing the numbers, yeah, we need to understand the price of that. And maybe it's a good point to raise that with your manager to understand what is your position. So to understand, so what is the situation? Yeah, if we have time, we can do that properly. If we don't have time, please create a ticket. Yeah, just get an agreement for the numbers you have. Managers and some, I don't know, like powerful people in the company always have a power to merge that with any numbers. But yeah, if you need to balance, you need to know the purpose of business, speed or quality. So that not exactly what you can decide. We are a bit like our hands are tied here. So yeah, I just conversation would be my recommendation here. The next one, do you have a device for writing send that remains stable even go when components undergo frequent requests? Yes. So about writing test stable. Yeah, but this is exactly the point of testing. So if you change components quite often, somehow we need to test them. Yeah. So, and every time we change component, if we change logic, we want to be sure that the logic is the same as we expect. So if it changes, we need to recheck that. So there is no answer like, no, we don't need to cover test by that logic. No, unfortunately, this is a part of our job. If we have tests that changes, we need to test it again and again. So if we just constantly changing it, we need to change. So maybe we can basically somehow simplify that, but still it should be no damage to the quality of component. So yeah, better to spend extra minutes for testing, yeah, than just remove and forget. It's not a solution. Definitely, no one is happy about that. So yeah, if it's like is a scene, like only changing labels, copy text, uh, we can maybe snapshot them and just update snapshotting quite easily. Just one button, yeah, we understand that it's going on. It's okay. But if changing logic, yeah, sorry, we are in bad position here. We need to test them. Nothing we can do there, sorry. And yeah, can snapshot testing still be useful or should be avoided in favor of more behavior-driven approaches? Yeah, so as I mentioned, snapshot is really misused scene because if you have a lot of content, for example, as I mentioned before, we have a homepage, we have a hero component with some really title H1. For example, we are selling the best phones here, like, I don't know, any phone you can imagine. And some subtitles. Yeah, and let's assume it's slider. Yeah, definitely we want to snapshot it, even if on that page we have sign up button anywhere with the model. We have a lot of buttons inside, like links, navigation. We definitely need to snapshot that page because it's the first scene what users see when it comes to the page website. So yeah, in this case, it's really crucial to have snapshot. So in my practice, so what I would like to do, so if you have copy, it really matters. So I snapshot in that. But snapshotting is not only one test that I have. So it's one of, as usually it's the first one test, but it's only one, maybe it can be two if there are some difference between the mobile device and so for example, sometimes we just try to use small copy, like for the mobile devices or to break them properly and just be copy, for example, titles for laptops, or hide sometimes elements. It depends how many room and space we have. So yeah, and definitely snapshot matters. But for that one, would be not, yeah, behavior driven. It's basically integration tests. So we need to use integration as much as possible for the whole button. So they're not basically, how to say, they're not replace each other. They like a puzzle, like you just combine all of them together and you have the whole picture in the end of the test. So, but yeah, so definitely, but still, you can have a lot of unit testing and integration testing, but don't have any snapshots. It's possible. But for example, it's impossible to have only snapshotting. It's bad approach. So nothing you can do that. So yeah, the thing is, yeah, once you write tests a lot, you will understand them better and you will have that eye and understanding. So like writing on the wall, like that feeling. You can read the room, you can read the component, and you understand. Okay, so this is like here I will test copy, here I'll test the button, here I'll mock in my API with MCW, and that's all. So you can just go through the page. Yeah. So if something is really complex for you, so just try to break that into small bits, write a couple of unit tests for that one, and in the end, it will not be so difficult once you see a whole picture. So yeah, test could be fun, especially when they're green. When they're red, not really fun, but yeah, it depends. So the more you're just diving into that, the more you're happy with green one. And sometimes even red could be really challenges for you, not really stress. So oh wow, it happens. What exactly happened? And you're just investigating that. Sometimes it's, yeah, enjoyable. Yeah, not always, but sometimes. And I assume that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the lecture. And thank you to our listeners. We hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed the lecture. So,
Amazing.
yes,
Amazing people. Really nice to meet all of you.
yeah, we're grateful for this. So, goodbye. Have a nice evening.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a nice day. Bye bye.